Hey everybody, it's Dave. Welcome back. Thanks for watching as always. Today I wanted to take the opportunity to round up a few bits of miscellaneous Rocket Lab pieces of news that have come up over the last few days. Some pretty interesting stuff, including an acquisition they've made in New Zealand, as well as some other updates. Before we dive into that though, I hope you'll consider subscribing by the end of the video if you do find it interesting and valuable. Every subscriber helps so much to the channel. With that out of the way, let's dive into the Rocket Lab updates. So should be a relatively quick one today, but just a couple pieces of information I wanted to cover. Obviously, Rocket Lab made a bit of an acquisition over in New Zealand the other day, but it's really not getting very much coverage, so I was pretty confused when I read about it at first. I was like, is this a full acquisition of a company? Are they just buying some assets, kind of like they did in the Virgin Orbit situation? Why the heck are they involved in what looks to be a sailing company? Like it had a lot of question marks when I saw this. But I did know from the recent Ashley Vance book that they have been able to source a lot of their composites materials from some of these boat companies in New Zealand, because New Zealand, when Rocket Lab was getting started, did not really have an aerospace industry, and these sail companies use a lot of similar advanced lightweight composites. Funny enough, can be used in rockets. So it does make a little bit more sense when you think about it from that lens, but let's take a look at the news and then talk a little bit more about it. So what we heard is that Rocket Lab USA, a global leader in launch and space systems, has acquired Sail GP Technologies, world-class manufacturing complex in Warkworth, New Zealand, bolstering the company's New Zealand business and retaining more than 90% of Sail GP Technologies' New Zealand-based staff. Sail GP Technology Company is relocating its operations to the United Kingdom to more effectively support their growing league over there. The article does continue on. Sail GP Technologies has been a close partner and supplier to Rocket Lab, providing select advanced composite materials and components for the Electron rocket. More than 50 Sail GP Technologies New Zealand-based team members will remain at the facility and join Rocket Lab's team supporting a growing production rate for Electron and the rapid development of Neutron. As part of the transition, Rocket Lab will retain the facility's advanced manufacturing equipment, including an autoclave, ovens, composite material cutting plotters, CNC metal machining equipment, and large-scale CNC composite machining equipment to support accelerated R&D and production. Sorry, I know that was a lot of reading. Just one more quote from Peter Beck here, quick. Peter Beck did say, "We've had the privilege of working with Sail GP Technologies team for a number of years now, supporting advanced carbon composite manufacturing for Electron. They're an absolutely world-class team, and we're excited to welcome them into the Rocket Lab fold. The transition from sea to skies ensures we keep advanced composites talents and expertise in New Zealand, supporting the ongoing growth of the nation's thriving aerospace industry." And we have a picture of Sail GP CEO Sir Russell Souts. I think that's Couts. Guess he's been knighted. Anyway, just a few quick thoughts on that. It does make some sense that Rocket Lab has been working with them a lot previously and buying composites from them. I have noticed with Rocket Lab's acquisitions, they like to acquire companies that they have worked with a lot previously and are very comfortable with. If you think back to the previous ones like, Sinclair, Solero, PSI, and all the rest. Basically, these are companies that Rocket Lab had already been working with for a number of years, which makes a lot of sense, I think. You get familiar with their capabilities and know the people very well, and they're more likely to stay on board that way versus like an Astra situation when they acquired Apollo Fusion. Sounds like 95% of those Apollo Fusion employees eventually ended up walking out the door, and you lose a lot of valuable knowledge and talent. So these 50 Employees will be staying. Rocket Lab will be taking over the lease on a facility as well as some machinery, and hopefully that will help speed along Neutron construction and development, as well as, increase production of Electron. Some questions you might have, though, are, while Electron is going reusable, do we really need to increase the production rate by that much? And while that is true, not every Electron mission qualifies for reuse depending on the mission requirements. So yeah, they still will need some, but I think it's a fair question. If they can reuse a ton of their rockets, surely they can expand their cadence pretty greatly without having to increase their manufacturing capacity. That could be something to think about. Obviously, they do still think they need this. And the other thing to think about is, it might just be a convenience factor for Rocket Lab. So this company, Sail GP, is basically leaving New Zealand where they're making their Electron. They might not have another good option. I really don't know how big the market is down there. If this is their preferred supplier, they think it's, high quality product, they're very comfortable with it. They probably just thought, well, why not bring it in-house? We can start doing that ourselves too, be even more vertically integrated, ensure that the talent remains near to us and we don't lose all this advanced carbon composite talent going over to the UK. Much more annoying, I would imagine, to have that stuff manufactured and shipped from the other side of the world all the way down to New Zealand. Probably would cause a lot of delays, maybe increase expenses and that kind of thing. So it could make sense from that point of view as well. The other factor to consider is that, while they talk about using these composites in New Zealand, obviously they are building out Neutron mainly in the United States. But the counter to that is they are doing a lot of testing and building out, test components in New Zealand. So, it's probably still applicable to speed along Neutron's development. We actually have seen the test tank of the second stage on the test stand right now in New Zealand. So definitely some crossover there. And when I was looking into this, I really just wanted to know, how much is this costing Rocket Lab? Because their balance sheet is dropping lower. And I have said previously, okay, I'm happy with all the acquisitions they have made. And even the Virgin Orbit one, which I wasn't expecting, sounded like they just got a great deal on a lot of these expensive machines and stuff like that. So I was okay with that one too. Question mark around this one, how much does it cost? And because, I don't really want to run down the balance sheet too much. Is it a stock deal? Is it just all cash? What are the details? And unfortunately, I couldn't really find any of the detail around this deal, but let me know in the comments below if you have any info about, what the cost is for Rocket Lab in this, because I'd love to hear about it. I did try to look into this Sail GP company a little bit just to try to find out what they were worth and if there's any more information out there on the value of their New Zealand facilities. Basically, all I found was that Sail GP back in 2020 was valued at $200 million when it was raising capital from a investment company, Endeavor. So, same CEO here. You can clearly see it's the same guy from the Rocket Lab article, but I'm quite confident from the details of this article, Rocket Lab's not buying this whole company, and that would be prohibitively expensive, and I would not be happy at all if they were, spending $200 million on it. They're just buying some facilities and the team and equipment in New Zealand, which is presumably a much smaller part of that overall pie. We're only talking 50 employees. So, I don't have a good sense of how valuable these machines are in this lease on this, I think it was 70,000 square foot facility, but yeah, definitely much smaller than that $200 million number. Did kind of scare me a little bit when I saw that for the first time before I started reading into the details. As I said, hopefully we find more details on this acquisition soon, but I think, it's probably a pretty small deal, not a huge impact financially, and there's just a lot of convenience to bringing that capability in-house and making sure it doesn't leave the country that they're manufacturing in. Could make a lot of sense from that point of view. And probably from Sail GP's point of view, they're doing right by their old employees, ensuring they still have a job after they leave the country. So hopefully Rocket Lab is, getting a good deal on this as well, because having to up and move from New Zealand to the UK, and taking all those machines with them, I am sure, would be quite the hassle for that company as well. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments below. But moving on to Neutron's updates, we did get some cool new graphics here from Rocket Lab on their website. We do have a path to liftoff kind of graph / chart kind of timeline showing, where they are on the path to Neutron's first launch. Pretty interesting to see. Glad to see I was kind of on the right track when I was making the video talking about some of the milestones they do need to hit. So that stage 2 build has been completed. We've seen a lot of pictures of it out in New Zealand. There's one right here, actually. Looking pretty cool, if you ask me. But anyway, so stage 2 build is complete. That's the first full-scale carbon composite tank built using advanced manufacturing methods. Who knows, this may even use carbon composites from that SailGP company. And then they have their structural and cryogenic testing campaign, which is currently in progress. At least that's what I'm assuming yellow is on this chart. Green complete, yellow in progress. So basically they get that tank onto the test stand, they start filling it up, pressurizing it as much as it would be under if it were, on a mission in space, make sure it can withstand all those pressures. So that is currently in progress. Also in progress would be the flight mechanisms test program, basically testing critical flight mechanisms, including separation systems, which would be like separating, your payload from your rocket stage, or the fairing actuation, otherwise known as, opening and closing those fairings. And then control surfaces like those canards up here on the rocket that allow you to kind of steer the vehicle through the atmosphere. Obviously, when there's no atmosphere, they don't do anything, but they kind of rotate them to steer the vehicle back to land. Then, obviously, a very big one is the Archimedes engine. That's currently in progress. I'd love to see some more updates on this. I don't have a ton of info for you on that. We've seen, some glimpses of work being done on it and pictures and stuff like that, but definitely not as much info as I would like to see about it. Then we have hardware in the loop, flight to orbit, testing of all avionics and communications devices with critical onboard software and GNC algorithms. First, Archimedes engine hot fire. Obviously, they've got to test that at Stennis to make sure the engine's working properly. They've got their qualification testing and then acceptance testing, make sure everything's good to go with the engine design and then the actual engines they're going to use for their first flight. So I'm excited to see that hot fire, but I think it's still going to be a little ways away before we start seeing that at Stennis. We also have stage 1, which is, the larger stage of the rocket. We haven't seen as much of that as stage 2. We have seen some pictures of tanks being worked on. I believe that would be in New Zealand as well, but yeah, definitely not the full body or anything like that. So still a lot of work to do on the first stage as well. Second stage does seem to be further along. Stage 2, static fire. So once they have, made sure everything's good with this tank that we saw pictures of and made sure everything's good with the Archimedes engine, they basically stick an engine on the tank and do a static fire. I believe that'd be a vacuum optimized engine for the second stage. Then you have a stage 1 static fire where the whole thing just, does a static fire on the ground with all 9 engines, make sure it's all working properly, finish Launch Complex 3 to, have all the infrastructure ready to go to support launch. Final integration, putting that second stage in the first stage, putting the payload in, getting everything ready to go, wet dress rehearsal, launch. Okay, so pretty interesting stuff. I'm very glad they updated the website with this so we can really follow along their progress. It's nice to see, where they are. Obviously, a lot of work to go. We only have one item in green here and a lot in yellow, and then even more still not started. But hopefully they can, work hard on that and make good progress. We have seen work started on that launch complex already, ground clearing, stuff like that from satellite footage, and we've also heard that they've worked on grading the ground and getting ready to go. Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting and wanted to share it with you guys. I hope you found it useful to get a better understanding of the path to orbit, and feel free to check out the site for updates whenever they get posted by Rocket Lab. This is pretty cool again. This is that second stage tank I was talking about. They are starting that cryogenic testing campaign. Really cool image here on the test stand over in New Zealand. Yeah, love this picture for sure with that logo for Neutron as well. So the tank is 5 meters in diameter, and they are filling it with liquid nitrogen and pressurizing it well beyond the expected flight pressures to verify structural integrity and sealing. So far, apparently, it's been passing with flying colors, which is very nice to hear. Obviously, they did have a problem with the Vulcan Centaur's upper stage in a similar scenario where it basically exploded and didn't withstand the pressure. So very important that this tank is strong enough to withstand all that. Interesting fact is that this single tank holds the same amount of propellant as 7 whole electrons. And when you think about it, it's even more mind-blowing because that is just this little piece, and the vast majority of the propellant is in this beast of a first stage. So definitely a much larger vehicle than an Electron, can require a lot more propellant. Always love to see the pictures shared from Rocket Lab. I'd also love to get some video seeing the tanks get frosty. Now, eventually they will push this tank to destruction, basically seeing how far it can go before it gets destroyed and can't handle the pressures anymore. I really do hope we get video of that because I always love to see a good explosion. I don't know about you guys. And then just a last tweet I thought was pretty cool from Rocket Lab. This week marks 7 years since they officially opened Launch Complex 1, the world's first private orbital spaceport. So pretty cool to see the progress when they got started, just like a little piece of cement here. Now this large launch complex with 2 separate launch pads. Yeah, got 2 Electrons ready to go. Or maybe it's just one in one stand. It's hard to see in that picture. Yeah, and then you can just see that then and now. We got a helicopter here. This was just basically a ditch. They just had the framing of this building in place. Now they've got Electrons sitting there ready to go. And, you know, the crane's getting things set up versus having the 2 Electrons there. Pretty cool pictures, and nice to look back on the progress of Launch Complex 1, especially as we are now starting to follow the construction of the launch complex for Neutron in Virginia. So it'll be interesting to kind of compare and, you know, track book as we watch the infrastructure go up for Neutron at Wallops. So that's all I have for you today. TLDR is that Rocket Lab is now becoming a sailboat company. No, just joking, but yeah, I found it pretty funny. Yeah, so that acquisition, I don't expect to be a massive, you know, expenditure. I'll be interested to find out those financial details. And yeah, just some interesting updates around Neutron progress, as well as some cool pictures shared by Rocket Lab on Twitter. Hope you guys found this video informative. If you did, I hope you'll consider hitting like and subscribe. It helps out so much. I hope you guys have a great day, a great week, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.